Wall. I thought walls were being built in the United States. I didn't know walls were being built in Asia.
Yeah, very interesting. Something that I was looking into in depth over the last few days, but particularly yesterday. So if we start, we'll basically go around the border of Syria. So this is the border with Iraq. At the end, there is a map so that people can get an idea of what I'm actually talking about. So this is in November this year. Iraq completes 350 kilometers of concrete border wall with Syria. Other reports have said they've reached up to 400 kilometers. So what does this actually mean? That Baghdad is seeking to seal the entire 618-kilometer border with a multi-layered security system, 3-meter wide trench, 3-meter deep, 4-layer inflatable barrier, observation towers every 1 kilometer equipped with advanced thermal cameras linked to a central monitoring system, and no guesses as to who is at that central monitoring system. Integrated defense network made up of trenches, barbed wire, and early warning systems, high precision thermal imaging, and 24/7 surveillance devices. Of course, what is this sounding very similar to? Gaza, and of course the draconian 15-minute cities like Hebron in the occupied territories. So this is a map from 2013. I'm just showing this to show how it was already beginning to take shape even back in 2013, 2 years into the regime change war against Syria. The areas in black show reinforced border areas. So you can see with Turkey in particular, between Israel and the occupied Golan territories in the south and the border wall with Jordan leading up to the triangle between the border with Iraq and Jordan. So then going on to Jordan itself, well, guess what? Beginning actually back in 2008, but escalating under the Obama administration. And Mike, you and I were talking yesterday that the policy to basically destroy and destabilize Syria did not begin with any particular president, but it was a bipartisan policy that was continued throughout various presidencies. So in 2016, he spent $500 million on sophisticated electronic fencing on the northern and eastern borders to protect the US bases. The project began in 2008, erected surveillance towers along 50-kilometer stretch of border, fully integrated and networked fence, 442-kilometer border with Syria and Iraq, as I mentioned, that triangle. Camera-studied network of ground sensors with a 5-mile radius either side of the fence, and of course, centralized joint US-Jordan command center receiving all of the information from those surveillance blocks on the fence itself. Then we look at under the Biden administration, again demonstrating how this isn't something that is relative to one particular party in the US or one particular president. So this was in 2024, the Department of Defense Appropriations Act. And I'm just showing this part to show that $397 million was put to one side for the counter-ISIS of Iraq and Syria Train and Equip Fund. Now, the slightly interesting part of this is that part of that fund is going to foreign forces, irregular forces, or groups and individuals without, of course, actually naming them or identifying them. And that sum then is also a portion to border security. And if we can just move on to the next part of the Act itself. So the Middle East Partner Reimbursements, Section 8110, $380 million to reimburse Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman, basically for enhanced border security. So this again began under Obama, but was continued under Biden and will continue under Trump until September 2025. Again, I just want to show that Turkey had been building reinforced border areas that you can see in red there. I myself in 2018, this is a 2016 map, but in 2018, I actually went to the northeastern border with Turkey and saw the building of the annexation wall. And again, let's have a look at what this actually represents. So this is the Turkey border security to be boosted by concrete walls. Now, interesting statistics from 2025. It's an 825-kilometer wall, which is almost finished. It's the third longest in the wall after the Great Wall of China and the US-Mexico borders, 120 border towers with regular patrols on either side of the border, 7-ton concrete blocks, 3 meters high, 2 meters wide. Surveillance includes thermal cameras, seismic and acoustic sensors, EU-funded. Cobra armored vehicles are patrolling the wall the entire length. Drone detection, jammers. Now, this is an extraordinary construction that has really effectively gone under the radar in Western media. And then in Lebanon, not only is Israel building, these are just 2 posts from X talking about various areas in the south of Lebanon, where Israel has, of course, invaded Lebanese territory since the ceasefire in November 2024 and is building a separation wall inside Lebanese territory to effectively create its so-called buffer zone in the south. Of course, totally unlawful annexation of territory. And Turkey has done the same in northern Syria. But here comes the UK. So, Mike, you will remember that last year we were talking about UK reinforcement of Lebanese armed forces, but also the establishment of watchtowers along the border with Syria, which are, of course, not to protect the Lebanese, but to effectively, the pretext for these borders is to prevent the smuggling of weapons of mass destruction. So we bring in the pretext for the war against Iraq, of course. But UK military veterans were involved in the training of the Lebanese armed forces, while armored boxes used in the new 30-foot constructions were taken from towers being decommissioned in Northern Ireland as part of the £62 million project. So basically, Britain has also established watchtowers. It's now suggesting that it can do the same on the southern border between Lebanon and Israel. And of course, clearly, this is not for the benefit of these countries. It's for the benefit of the security of Israel and its allies that are stationed, particularly in Lebanon. 115 million of taxpayers' money, UK taxpayers' money, has been spent on effectively reinforcing border security in Lebanon. We can talk about that more in extra. So now I just want to bring up a map that I drew up yesterday, which shows very clearly here exactly how Syria is effectively being completely encircled by these border walls with massive surveillance capabilities. So effectively, it's becoming a Takfiri cauldron. The various armed forces like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and all the various affiliates are going to be kettled inside Syria, of course, committing heinous massacres against Syrian people. The only open area, sorry, can I just have the map back on for a second? The only open area will be to the coast. And then, of course, they're facing Cyprus, which is gradually being taken over by Israel and Israeli influence. But also, if you look at Lebanon, it's about the corralling of the Lebanese resistance in the south of Lebanon there, because the border wall will effectively close the resistance in Lebanon off from Syria. But also, if you look at the orange arrow there, the reason I've put that there is because effectively this will isolate Syria from Iraq and from Iran, and it will isolate Lebanon from Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and also Palestine from Lebanon and Syria. So this is effectively about corralling, imprisoning any resistance actor states. And in that area of Iraq, so again, this is compounding the imprisonment of Syrians. If we can look at the Yinon plan, we can look at the clean break doctrine, but I just drew up the map of the new Middle East, which was published in the early 2000s. But where I've circled the map, you can actually see that on the border with Syria, the intention is to build an Iraqi Sunni Muslim state, which effectively will again further distance Syria from any assistance that it might receive, either from Iran or from any of the resistance actors in the region.
Quite an incredible situation, quite an incredible development. Vanessa, have you any idea what the total amount of money that's being spent on this is?
Oh, very difficult to tell because, I mean, Turkey is running its own project. Raytheon in Tucson, Arizona is the prime contractor for the Jordanian wall. Britain, as we've said to date, have spent 115 million, but it's up in the hundreds of millions that have been poured into this project.
Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, that's a lot of monitoring as well. You know, all these sort of sensors and whatnot. Do you get